Welcome to Success, Love, and Fulfillment Secrets, the place where you discover powerful distinctions to spiral your life upwards.
Soraya has an incredible amount of wisdom and discernment.
The results that I've been having, they've been amazing. I've been blown away, having a better state of mind.
I've been able to turn my marriage around. I've been able to find direction in my professional life.
My name is Soraya Altana. I am a life designer, and I am here to inspire you to design a life you love.
Now I know where I'm going, what do I want. My results are being outstanding. Happy for the experience and happy for the results, and I'm happy.
Working with Soraya will move your life forward in ways that you don't even realize.
I have a sense of hope, and I can become the leader that I want to become with my family and with my business.
Ready? Let's discover your secret of the day. Hi, this is Soraya Altana, and I'm so excited that you are here today in this episode, which is very special. And if you ever had thoughts about investing in real estate, about wanting to do something else, or looking into a new industry, or doing something on the side, well, I have a treat for you today, because today we are talking to somebody that I so admire. It's a dear friend of mine, and I so admire him deeply and dearly. And if you knew me, you would know that I am an interior designer. And there was an episode in my life where I was buying houses and rehabbing them and selling them. So I was in full blown into real estate. And now I am an interior designer that empowers others to redesign their interiors. And I am joined here today by my dear, dear friend, Tom Perry from Houston. And I want to introduce him to you as somebody that I was blown away by since day one that I met him. I went to an event and I saw this one man that was so clear on what he wanted and he was going. He was part of a new company, and since then every single conversation I've had with him has blown my mind. I always leave better than he found me. Probably doesn't know that, but there's a plethora of wisdom that whenever he opens his mouth, you got to take notes. You want to be walking around with a notepad, because like we say in Spanish, donde pone el ojo pone la bala. And what that means is that wherever he directs his gaze, that's where the bullet goes. He hits the nail on the head every single time. He is a co-founder of Right Path Real Estate, and he's a house buyer since 2013. And since they started, I remember when he said that the first year they bought 7 houses or something online, and then the following years they were going into buying already hundreds of houses, and since then like 600 houses. And if I'm correct, he told me not so long ago that he was buying a house every 2 days and a half. He was buying a property and going and doing. So he's amazing. He's got a radio show that he also started where you can listen daily from Monday through Friday in the morning, and cues and tips and wisdom and knowledge and a lot of free knowledge that you can get. And my only complaint to him is that I didn't meet him sooner when I met him. So Tom, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Well, thanks. It's been nice meeting everybody on the show, and I can't improve on any of that, so probably ought to sign off.
So, well, thank you. Tom, for me, it is a pleasure to have you here because
it's great to be here.
Yeah, because I know that, like I said, every time that I speak with you, there is something greater that is created, and that's what I call creating circles of greatness. And you have such a deep knowledge, and you are savvy in your, not only in your area, but in a lot in the entrepreneurial world. And I love learning from you. So I'm gonna ask you a question. When people ask you, who is Tom Perry, what would you want them to know? Who would you want to be known by? Who is Tom Perry?
That's a great question. I want to be known for making a difference in other people's lives. I bought in at an early age in the Zig Ziglarism. He was the first person I ever heard say it. You help enough other people get what they want in life, and yours is an automatic. So when you become other focused as opposed to inwardly focused, then I think you really make a difference. And I want to be about making a difference in other people's lives.
Yay. And what defines you as that? what defines you as a human being, as an entrepreneur, as wanting to make a difference in the world?
Yeah, I think in life it's really hard to just boil it down to one word or, one, font, if you will. You remember Prince when he changed his name and he became like this font instead of having a name. It's really, I think when you focus on loving people and then, in my case, loving God as well, so love God and love people, then I think that you can really make a difference in the world. And so, that's really, I think what defines me is I really, one person at a time. I used to own an insurance agency, and the name of the company in the insurance agency was called Starfish Ventures. And I always loved the poem about starfish. And I don't know if you've ever heard the poem, but
I know what you're talking about. Where you're throwing a fish. A
starfish back in the ocean, right? There was a man walking along the beach, and he sees off in the distance a guy that looks like he's dancing in the surf. And as he approached, got closer, the man wasn't dancing. He was actually reaching down and picking up starfish and throwing them back, because starfish had washed up overnight when the surf came in. And the older gentleman said, hey, there's thousands of starfish per mile, and there's miles and miles of beach, and so you can't possibly make a difference. And the young man thought about that for a moment, reached down, grabbed another one, threw it back, and he says, well, I made a difference to that one. So I think sometimes people's own mindset of, I can't change the world, so I won't do anything. And so I just realized that the world changes one person at a time. If you can just really, there's a lot of people that have questions. And I feel like that, wisdom comes with age and experience, right? And so I feel like I've developed some wisdom in my life, through experience and failures and things like that. And so I just want to share, my journey, my experience, and help people in whatever way I can.
Yes, that's what I know you for. So you're right there fulfilling that. You've helped me tremendously, and I really appreciate your friendship and your wisdom and your sharing with me, and it's really great. So you said some of the things of how you started, and that's going to my next question. It's like, tell us about your journey from where you started at one point. Where are you in life, and where do you want to go? What is that one thing that is pulling you when you're not knowing that you're going to be turning into all this? Where do you start, and what are your thoughts at the moment?
Yeah, I feel like that people really struggle in two areas of their life. One is health, and the other is finances. And in the past, I've been involved in a direct selling company that helped people with their health. And right now, I'm helping people on their financial side. And so my journey is, it really started taking back to like March of 2010. I had a wholesale health insurance agency, and that's just a fancy word for I was recruiting a lot of agents. And I had a really good contract direct with a bunch of carriers. And my job was to build out a team of agents nationwide. And I was at that time in 10 different states, and was adding a state a month. My goal was to get to 40 different states. And I had 110 agents, and I was growing about 10 agents every week. So I wanted to get to between 4,000 and 5,000 agents. And if you remember, in March of 2010, the Affordable Care Act passed. And I realized that, oh, wow, through no fault of my own, circumstances have changed pretty dramatically in my life. And that's probably happened to people before. Sometimes you can say, oh, that was my fault. I did something wrong that caused this cause and effect. Here, there's a situation where, obviously I wasn't the tipping point on that legislation being passed or anything like that. And literally within 30 days of that legislation being passed, I was out of business because our two biggest carriers sent an email that said, effective immediately, we're no longer accepting applications for health insurance. I was pretty much done. And I knew that wasn't going to be my path going forward. So I was, racing down that track as fast as I could to get to 5,000 agents in 40 states. And then suddenly it was just that plan was severed. And so that allowed me to sit back and go, okay, now I get a chance to reinvent myself. What do I want to do? And I really didn't know. And so sometimes when I get in that situation, some people just stop and do nothing and try and, cerebrally figure it out. I normally get involved in something, just kind of keep the ball rolling. And I knew I didn't have to figure it out right away, but I knew that, because I had about a year and a half's worth of income residually coming in, but I didn't want to wait till the last minute. I'm not that guy that says, oh, I've been working really hard, so I'm going to take 2 or 3 months off and spend down my cash. I'm not that guy. So a guy that I go to church with, offered an opportunity. He said, look, I know you know a lot about scaling and growing businesses. So would you consider partnering with me on this handyman business that I've got? He said, and explanation was, look, I've had this business for, 8 or 9 years, and I'd known him about 7 or 8 of those years from church. And he said, I did $1 million in sales my first year. I did $2 million in sales my second year. I've continued to grow it. But he said, I really have nothing to show for it. There's a lot of activity, but he's not really saving anything over time. And he said, I think you could do a better job of running the business than me. So long story short, we partnered up. And then about 90 days later, he did some things that he shouldn't have done and got himself into some trouble. And that really severed our partnership. And he essentially said, look, there's 4 guys that have been with me from the very beginning that have been my main crew. And he said, I want you to, because I can't really continue in the business, I want you to take those 4 guys and start a crew, continue a company, whether it's, the same name or something different. And I have to say, I knew nothing at all about construction when he was approaching me with that. And these 4 guys did, but I do know scaling and growing a business. Mm-hmm. And so I decided to go ahead and reverse engineer a construction company. And I decided to specialize in investor remodeling because I realized that I could reduce the number of, components in terms of I don't have to offer as many choices on flooring or paint or things like that. I wasn't going to be a custom remodeler. I was going to be a very, I'll call it the Henry Ford of remodel, the assembly line remodeling. Henry Ford used to say, yeah, you can have any color you want as long as you want it black. And I would say, I'll paint your house any color that you want as long as you want it kill and beige on the walls and you want it white on the ceilings and semi-gloss white enamel on doors and trim. And it really became just a formula. So I started with 1 crew in October of 2010, and then grew to 2 crews and then 3 crews. And then at that point, managing crews and growing and scaling the business was a little overwhelming. So I brought on a project manager and who was my youngest brother. He, at that time, this is about 2011, new home construction was starting to die down. Mm-hmm. And so he had been a new home project manager and decided to move from Austin to Houston to take on managing my crews. I continued the marketing and sales and running the business. And we went from 3 crews to 12 crews in the next 12 months. Wow. And so became really one of the largest investor-friendly general contracting companies. And that allowed me to meet, who became my business partner, a guy named Jason Bible. And we started together in July of 2013 with only $50,000. I put up 25, he put up 25, and started Houston House Buyers. And you're right, we did 7 houses in 2013. We did 67 houses in 2014. We did 90 in 2015. We went over the 100 house mark in 2016 at 120, and we continue to grow. And you're right, we've passed 600 houses in 6 years. And one of the things that I figured out along the way, I've had some epiphanies along the way. One of the first epiphanies that I had was look at who has control over your life. And sometimes you say, if you can't beat them, join them. Mm-hmm. And I did an analysis, and I thought to myself, how many of the politicians up in Washington actually owned wholesale health insurance agencies? And my guess is probably 0. I've not actually taken a poll of all of them, but I'm like, so it really wasn't affecting them when they passed that legislation, yet it affected me greatly. And then I started thinking, well, how many of them own real estate? And it's a lot of them. So will they ever pass the kind of legislation that will affect themselves like it will affect other people? And so I decided, hey, if you can't beat them, join them. So real estate looked really, really good. And my second epiphany was when I got on the investor side of things compared to the construction side and saw the amount of time, energy, and effort and what my rate of income was being a contractor versus being the investor, I decided it was actually costing me money in the form of time to own the construction company. So I actually gave the construction company away in December 14. I gave 45% to my brother. I had brought on a marketing guy that had been an employee that I'd known for a couple of years, and I gave him 45%, and I gave 10% to my dad. And that allowed for me to focus 100% of my efforts on the investment side. And we've continued to grow and expand, and so it's been really good. And in September of last year, I actually bought out my business partner. So I actually own 2 real estate investment companies now, and Right Path Real Estate, which is our real estate education and mentoring company.
So that's where I was going to say, you're doing also training and educational programs, and then you have the radio. And let me ask you something. What do you find is the biggest hurdle for people to either start, people that are listening to you, people that are coming to your educational programs, whatever it is, what do you find is the biggest hurdle for people to either get started or to pass that whole quicksand at the beginning and get to higher ground?
Yeah, the biggest thing is overcoming fear. It's really, it's like they want to learn everything about how to do the transaction prior to actually doing a transaction. And it's literally like trying to learn how to ride a bicycle and never actually getting on the bicycle. You cannot learn how to ride a bike from a book or a seminar. You have to get on the bike and do it. You can learn the components. What I've discovered when we first started our radio show a little over 3 years ago, and it's daily, it's Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Biz Radio, AM 1110, that's in Houston. So if you go to SoundCloud, you can tap into that. And you can also, we uploaded, we broadcast on Facebook at Right Path Real Estate. We also on Instagram and YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. It's all branded under Right Path Real Estate. But one of the things that we used to spend an entire weekend teaching all the technical aspects about how to find deals, how to fund the deals, how to analyze the deals, how to estimate the rehabs, how to dispose of the deals at the end, whether you're retailing or you're wholesaling and all those kind of things. And we spent 100% of the time on that. And then we started tracking our students' progress and realized, you know what, in the reality, that's about 20% of the success of the students. The other 80% is what's going on between the ears. It's the confidence to take action and overcoming that fear. It's really having a reason why, because, very few people start out with enough capital to really do this business or the time to do this business. It's not like where you say, hey, I want to start a restaurant or a food truck or something like that. And you realize that's going to take 100% of your effort. I mean, imagine if you're trying to start a restaurant and you were undercapitalized and you had no time and you had no experience in doing that. And, what's your chance of success? Well, it's not very great. Now, you could study how a restaurant works. You could spend a lot of time in a restaurant and all that. But until you actually start, running one, you really don't know all the nuances, the ins and outs, the people skills you need to hire the chefs and or the cooks, whatever level of restaurant you have, or the wait staff, things like that. The same thing happens in this business. There are a lot of moving parts. People say that real estate is really easy. It's the people that make it hard, and that's whether it's the seller or the buyer. And I know you've done this as well, and dealing with contractors and how do you find a contractor that you can trust and those kind of things. I mean, you've dealt with all of that. So really it's the having your why, because when all of those things start hitting you in the face, it's like, do you have a strong enough reason why you're doing this?
Right.
I think most people don't start out with that. And then I think the other thing is very few people really have business skills. Because if they're coming from an employee environment, they don't really know what it like. Everybody says they want to be self-employed or they want to own their own business, not really knowing what all that entails. And there's a skill set for running a business. And there's a difference between actually just flipping a house and running a house flipping business. And so sometimes there's lots of organizations out there that teach you how to flip a house, which is not enough to know, right? You really need to know how to run that as a business and understand what are all your costs and things like that. So really knowing your numbers.
Great. Wow. So yes, I find it, and it is true. We get into it, and I've been there and wore the t-shirt, right? But it's learning the side of doing the business and running it as a business rather than what fire do I put out now, right? And
right.
Yeah, I love what you're saying, because it is so true for people and for the people that I work with that are struggling many times is the mindset and is also the strategy. So you got both things. So
I'll give you an example of one mindset that we run into a lot is people. If I ask, I'm surprised. If I asked 1,000 people, hey, do you know what your time is worth? It's about 990 people out of 1,000 do not know the answer to that question. And so until you understand what your time is worth, then people make bad choices about what they do with their time. And I'll give you a great example. When I first started partnering with the gentleman that I went to church with, one of the things that in order to fix his business, I needed to figure out what is he doing on a daily basis. So one day I decided to just ride with him and see, hey, what's a typical day in this guy's life so that I can tweak, improve, make sure that he's doing, more quality things with his time. And we actually went to 3 different Home Depots. We went to 2 different Lowe's, and we went to a McCoy's building center to pick up materials and take them to the job sites. which is, a lot of activity, a lot of productivity, and all those kind of things. Seems like you're doing the things that a business owner should be doing. And yet, when I asked him, I said, let me ask you this. What is your time worth? And he says, well, I don't really know. And I said, okay, well, let's bracket it. Is it worth $1 million an hour? And he says, no. And I said, is it worth $1 an hour? And he says, no. So it's somewhere between those, right? So we figured out he wanted to make $100,000 a year. And I said, okay, well, $100,000 a year. Let's say we work 50 weeks out of the year. So that's $2,000 a week. Let's say you're going to work 40 hours a week. Most people work more, but let's just say 40 hours a week. Then you need to account for your time at $50 an hour. So would you ever hire somebody for $50 an hour to go to Lowe's or Home Depot or McCoy's and pick up materials and take them to the job site? And he goes, well, no. And I go, well, then you're not doing tasks that are worthy of your time. You're saying you don't have the time to run your business, yet you could hire somebody for $15 or $20, whatever it is. Maybe you say, well, the guy that I have working for me at $12 an hour, he's not smart enough to do it the way that I would do it. Okay, well, surely it doesn't take a $50 an hour guy to do it the way that you should do it. So you need to outsource things on the tasks that are less valuable than what your time is worth. So it's as simple as, should a neurosurgeon ever answer his own phones? Even if he likes to answer his own phones, even if he's really good at it, he's got a great phone voice, which most of them don't, right? Or should he do his own book? Should he do his own QuickBooks?
Right.
The answer is no. If he's doing anything other than, cutting into somebody's brain, it's not,
the most productive use of their time right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's powerful. Which I was going to ask you, what is your secret to success? What is your recipe?
Yeah, figuring out the things that I'm a 10 at and doing those things, because, John Maxwell used to talk about all the time, in fact, still does. He says, if you were to rate yourself on 10 different attributes, you'd rate yourself as a 1 or 2 on some things, a 5 or 6 on some other things, a 8 or 9, maybe a 10 on a few things. And a lot of people, what they want to do is they want to work on their weaknesses. And if you're a 2 and you get twice as good and now you're a 4 or 5, capitalism doesn't value mediocrity. Capitalism values excellence. We'll pay a lot more for someone that's a 9 or a 10 at something than somebody that's a 4 or 5. So why not work on the things that you're an 8 or 9 at? And truth be told, you can only be good at about 1 or 2, maybe 3 things at the most.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I'm really good at is communicating with people, meeting with sellers of properties, things like that. That's one of my strengths. I'm an absolute 10 at that. But I'm not really great at paperwork. So anytime I've ever started a company, the very first person that I bring on board is somebody to handle the paperwork, to handle the details, to handle that back office, either a transaction coordinator or somebody to do my books, QuickBooks, that kind of stuff. That's the first person I always hire because I know that's one of my weaknesses. And rather than trying to get better and doing all of that, I don't even try. I just outsource that immediately. And then I pay people for their expertise. So I think that's one of the things that I really came to realize is that when I was younger, I wanted to figure out a lot of things myself. Now that I've gotten older, and I just had a birthday on Saturday, I turned 55. And so now that I've gotten older, I realize, you know what? I'm trying to compress time. If it takes me a year to figure it all out all by myself, or I can learn it in 2 weeks from an expert saying, you do this, and then, and there's a lot of things nowadays, you take marketing, for example, almost any business that wants to be successful has got to understand marketing. But even marketing is not just one person anymore. It used to be, it was relatively simple to do marketing, but now, a website designer only really designs the website, makes sure that it's functional and all that, but it's not necessarily the person that's going to create the right verbiage and all that. You have to have another person that's kind of the copyright person to put the words together. And then in addition to that, then whatever your CRM is, or, whether it's ClickFunnels if ClickFunnels is to be an expert in ClickFunnels, that's a full-time job. If you know anybody that, it's hard to do that and do Infusionsoft and do the website design and do the ad. I mean, it's like to be an expert in all that. So, what I want to 10 at a AdWord copy person, an ad copy person. I want to 10 at a website design. I want to 10 at either ClickFunnels, Infusionsoft, whatever your choice is. I want to 10 in each of those different areas. And then I don't have to be the expert in any of those. I just want to hire the person that is the expert.
That's very key what you were saying, because many people get stuck into wanting to prove to somebody that they can do X or they can do Y. What Einstein would say is anybody can be a genius, but if you, paraphrasing what he said, if you have a fish climb a tree, he's going to be feel stupid for the rest of his life, right? So
Right.
many times we find ourselves trying to do something that we're not great at, instead of, like you're saying, outsourcing and giving it to somebody else and finding what is the one element, what is it that makes me great, what is it that I thrive, right? When I can fit in the different circles, what I'm great at,
Right.
what serves the greater good, what I love doing and what people would pay me for doing, then you got, like, if you can find that middle point, then you got your ideal job. And so I get it.
Well, and to be an expert at anything, it's almost like, especially you take Google AdWords, it's just one small piece. The people that do Google AdWords, I mean, they eat, breathe, sleep Google AdWords, because the algorithm, Google's constantly changing their algorithms and how it works.
Right.
And if you're not doing that on a daily basis, if you're not plugged in that, you go on vacation for 2 weeks, you come back and it's like, it's a totally different thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so I guess a good analogy for me is, if you take somebody like a Roger Federer, and he's a great tennis player, right? I mean, what other sport could he be great at? And the question is that if he took time away from tennis to go be, who's the great swimmer that just won so many Olympic medals? Michael Schumacher, right? Or is that his? But Michael Phelps. Sorry, Michael Phelps. While he's working with Michael Phelps trying to be a better swimmer, and Federer's not on the court, then Rafael Nadal is focusing only on tennis. He's going to pass him up, right? So when you leave the court to go focus on something else, you're no longer being your best at that one thing. So you can either be an expert on a few things or a master of none, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Okay. And I want to ask you, Tom, if you could leave a legacy that was going to be passed on to generations, you're one talking of wisdom, and that would be ingrained in people's mind for generations to come, what would be that for you? What would you say?
Yeah, when I look at very successful people that I admire and I look up to, then one of the things that I really realize is that, yes, they have a tremendous net worth, right? Everybody, let's say money's not the most important thing, but it sure makes life a whole lot easier, right? Not if you think having money is a problem, then try not having it, right? I think people are given the choice between having and not. So when I look at successful people, Sir Richard Branson or a Warren Buffett or somebody like that, I ask myself the question, would I rather have their net worth, or would I rather have their expertise and their network, right? And so one of the things, a pearl of wisdom that I feel like I need to pass on to people to leave a legacy is, it's less about your net worth, it's more about your network. And in fact, some of the people that I've gotten to know over the years are sometimes trust fund kids or things like that, as their parents or maybe grandparents. They created an amazing business. And you probably know people that second and third generation, oftentimes they live in fear of money. Mm-hmm. And so granted, they may hang around with, other people that have money and things like that, but they don't really know how the money is created. And it's created by helping other people and building your network. Now, they say that you're the average of the 5 people that you hang around with the most. Right. So are you consciously choosing those people that you hang around with? Because as I've changed who I hang around with, and I started making conscious choices with the people that I hang around with, what I find is people that make $1,000 an hour think differently than people that make $50 an hour. It's just there's a reason why people that make $100,000 a year live in neighborhoods of other people that make $100,000 a year, and they vacation and they go to the same restaurants and they eat the same kind of foods and things. They have the same ideas about health and nutrition. People that make $500,000 a year, again, live in similar neighborhoods. They go to similar vacation spots, similar restaurants, have similar ideas about health and wellness, things like that. And then, so as you move into those different, spheres, you realize it's not, we all have the same number of hours in a day, right? It's the thinking that makes the difference. Mm-hmm. So are you starting to hang around with people that think differently
Right.
that think at a different level, that make the kind of money that you want to make. So you decide, hey, if I want to make $500,000 a year, I better start hanging out with people that make $500,000 a year so that I understand how they think, because I guarantee you they think differently.
Right.
And they make decisions differently, because there's a cycle in life, I believe, that, we have what we have in life because of what we do. But we do what we do in life because of the decisions that we make. And the decisions that we make are based on our thinking. And so many people, when they want to change their situation, they want to focus on doing something different.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But they really need to move further upstream and focus on thinking differently. Because until we start thinking differently, we won't decide differently. And then we won't do differently. And then we won't change what we have differently. And so I think people work on the wrong end of the problem, so to speak.
Right.
And people get stuck in life, right? And they don't seek outside counsel when they get stuck. They think, oh, I'll figure it out on my own. Well, that's a little bit like, asking, hey, where'd you lose your keys, right? Yeah. Well, wherever I set them down last, right? If I knew that, they wouldn't be lost. And so why is it that, we always find our keys in the last place we look, right? Well, and so we can't get ourselves unstuck. If we could, we wouldn't have gotten stuck in the first place, right? And then I think that oftentimes one of the things that's broken in people's thinking is that they look at, I can't do X, Y, or Z because of, and it's some point of lack, typically in resources, right? Either time or money resources. And if we look at successful people, they don't look at the limitations of their own resources. They look at, how resourceful can I be? So most people, when they don't have resources, they also don't have resourcefulness.
Absolutely.
And so if we can fix our resourcefulness, because did Jeff Bezos have all the resources he needed to create what Amazon is today? Oh, heck no. He used a lot of people's time and their money to get to where he is, right? So oftentimes we look at our time and our money and say, oh, we can't do that.
Right.
And yet we all know, we've all been taught by Tony Robbins and others, hey, there's more than enough out there in the universe to get you whatever it is that you want. So are you focusing on, how do I get the resourcefulness that I need? Not how do I get the resources that I need?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're talking on so many different good points and tokens that you're leaving us, and secrets to success, because what you're saying is what Tony says too, is your thrive will make you thrive. Your people around you will make you or break you, right? That's why I go on trips with you. We went together, right? And
right, absolutely. And Hobos, right? Swim with them. It was on my bucket list to swim with whale sharks, right? You call them shark whales.
I call them shark whales. I still call them shark whales. I still invite people to swim with them.
That's because in Spanish, the modifier comes after the noun, right?
Well, and the funny thing is that it's not a whale. It's not a shark. It's a fish.
I know, right? It's a fish, right? Yeah.
But so we had so much fun in that trip, and getting ready to do it again, because I want to hang out with you. You said something very key, and that's why I even do these trips, right? Because I want to be surrounding myself, and every day you're busy, you're running around. When I was in Houston, I know that we would catch each other at glimpses, but being able to spend with you and rack your brain. And I know I was there, and I was dedicated to say, hey, I'm not going to let this opportunity pass me by when I have Tom Perry here in the same island and his phone is out of Wi-Fi. And it was a great time. So
yeah, it was a great time. Thanks.
Yay.
That was a lot of fun.
And we're getting ready.
The question is like, if you decide like what level of health that you want, for example, what percentage of body fat, or what, level of fitness, cardio fitness, whatever, are you hanging out with other people that value that also? Because if you're not, it's going to be really hard to do that in an environment where you're not supported by doing that. I mean, I think that Tony Robbins allows people around him that don't value their health. Probably not in his inner circle, right? I mean, because he values his health. In order to bring vibrancy and energy to life, you've got to have good health. You can't have the energy to be successful in life if you don't have good health. And so if you're hanging around with other people that don't value their health because they're eating, cheese nachos, things like that. I mean, it's like, who doesn't love some cheese nachos, right? But, it's not congruent with good health, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, so much great stuff, Tom. I really want to thank you for sharing with us out of the plethora of knowledge that you have, out of your time that I know it's super busy. It's not $50 an hour. So thank you for being here with us today and for us to allow to learn. And I want to invite if you're listening to this, if you're watching this and you're saying, you know what, I want to learn more. I see the passion that he has, the security, the certainty that he knows. Where do you train people nationally? Are you doing only locally? What are you doing?
So our training center's here in Houston. However, people do fly in. Like we do a 2-day class, a Saturday and Sunday, once a month. It's typically the third weekend of the month. We're retooling a few things in our 2-day class. I'm really excited about our next one's going to be in September, the third weekend of September, Saturday and Sunday. But people come in from around the country. Last month that we did it, and it's the 20th and 21st of September. So we're not doing one in August. The next one will be in September. And so people do fly into Houston. We've got accommodations nearby and all that kind of lots of places to stay. It's from 9 to 5 on Saturday and 9 to 5 on Sunday. And the good news is I teach you everything that I know about real estate. The bad news is I teach you everything I know about real estate, but it's not just the real estate that you're going to get. You're going to, I asked people at the very beginning, would you rather me be your cheerleader or your coach? Do I have your permission to be your coach? Because, if you're watching a football game and, if you're at the live game, because the television doesn't really show this, but if you're watching a live game, you can look down on the sidelines of the field and there's always cheerleaders down there. Mm-hmm. And you can't tell how the team is doing if you're watching the cheerleaders, because the team is up by 50, the cheerleaders are cheering. And if they're down by 50, the cheerleaders are cheering, right? So you can't really tell because they're just cheering their tail off. That's their job, right? If you watch the coach, you can definitely tell. So I'm really more of a coach at heart than I am a cheerleader. I'm not going to say, hey, you keep doing that, it's going to work out for you. And I'm going to say, hey, look, time to get back to work, right? It's you're doing this, this, and this. And so 9 to 5 on Saturday, 9 to 5 on Sunday. And you can go to rightpathrealestate.com. That's rightpathrealestate.com. I'll step aside there and you can read it, Right Path Real Estate.
And we're going to post it as well so that
perfect. Appreciate that.
Have it. You can have the links. You can have.
Yeah, I forgot. It's also right here. Yeah, thanks.
And also, for people that are only listening, we're going to post also the links to where you can hear him every day. He is
Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, right? From 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., right?
9 a.m. Okay. So, well, Tom, thank you so much for being here today, and I really appreciate you. I love your passion. I love what you're about, and I really want to thank you for being part of today's episode. And I want to invite you, if you haven't, to subscribe to this channel, to pass around. If you find this beneficial for you, share it with somebody, post it, because this information is what somebody's waiting to hear, and then get right on track and where we can help them transform their life. So, like right. I said,
and are you gonna share the February trip? Because I'm gonna plan on going on that trip.
Yes. Yeah. So we're planning to go to Costa Rica in February, and right. So Tom's gonna be there. I'm so excited, yeah. And I'm gonna say it again. My only complaint, Tom Perry, about you is not meeting you sooner. So I really
is not what?
Not having met you sooner.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's a regret of mine as well, that I didn't meet you sooner.
But it really blessed my life, and I am with you in just with everything that you said. And importantly, as you said, love, to me, my philosophy of life, and I always tell people, is love God, love yourself, love your neighbor, and love is what it's in it. So thank you for joining us here to our secrets to success this time, fulfillment, love, success, and you want to be part of that. And join us. I'm going to be posting more information. Reach out and let us know if you'll be interested in coming on a trip where we're going to have Tom Perry, where we're going to have here, we're going to do masterminding, we're going to do fun stuff. And that's just a trip for fun. It's there's no business. Sometimes I come back and people are like, how was your training with the shark whales? I'm like, we were swimming. There was no training. But anyways, well, thank you for being here. Any final words that you want to say to people that are listening to you?
No, just thanks for having me on your podcast. And it's like you said, it's a pleasure knowing you and working with you. And you're a great person.
Well, thank you. So we'll see you in our next episode. Have a great day, and may God bless.
All right, thanks.
Thank you for being here today. Find out what opportunities are available for you to start designing a life you love now by checking out the links. I look forward to connecting with you and seeing you live your best life yet. Hugs.